What is up, fight fans? I am Jason BURGOS for Sherdog.com, and I am joined by a man who will be making his long sought after return to the octagon for the first time in 20 months. His frustrating odyssey will end on Yas Island at UFC 251 when he faces off with crafty British grappler Davey Grant, and the man I speak of is the Spartan, aka Martin Day. Mr. Spartan, sir, thanks so much for the time to talk this return to the octagon.
I love the intro, my man. Thank you for having me on the show. 20 months. I didn't realize it was already been that long. But yeah, you're right. Can't wait to get back in there.
Now, like I said, 20 months. This has to be the most difficult hiatus I can ever remember for any fighter in MMA. In March of 2019, you were unable to make your fight with Chris Gutierrez. 4 months later, a knee injury and then surgery, forces you out of another fight. Then 370 days after the Gutierrez situation, COVID-19 fucks things up for the whole world, and you are planned to your planned fight in Ohio's gets scrapped with like a lot of other fighters. He has this period of time in your career been even more taxing mentally than anything physically that's happened to you in this time?
It's been a little frustrating, but I'm good at just kind of rolling with the punches, so to speak. So challenges come and go, and it's just part of life. But injuries happen, and that's definitely something I've dealt with before. I've never had to pull out of a fight though in my whole career, and so to do that, with their fights in 2019, that sucked a lot. And I was just looking forward to getting back in there so bad in the beginning of this year, but then COVID-19 happened, and that was completely out of anybody's hands, man.
Yep.
So it's nothing you can do about that, but yeah, all of that being said, I'm just, ready to get back in there. I can't even explain how excited I am.
For a lot of people that say lost fights in March, like those 3 fights that got bumped and the London fight, and even some of the April stuff that was pulling me in Tachi Palace, a lot of those guys were able to get rebooked in the last couple months. Was there any reason it's taking you all the way to July to get rebooked? Was it just finding an opponent was difficult, which is a problem for a lot of people? Or was there something in it for you in terms of, like, you just maybe didn't want to, participate in an event during a pandemic? Like, what kept you out for so long?
Yeah, well, at first it was a safety thing, my wife is works at a prison, and so we kind of had talked about it. She's
Wow.
a
Yeah.
prison counselor, so she just wanted to be me to be as safe as possible. So I wanted something a little bit later. I asked my manager Jason for a July, something in July, and so I was kind of staying in shape. Another thing was we were unable to get the right training. We had a lot of lockdowns here in Hawaii.
Okay.
Gyms were closed. Pretty much everything was closed, so I wasn't able to get the proper training, and I rely a lot on my preparation for the fight. So yeah, I wanted something in July, and we ended up getting it, so I was happy.
Along with the mental frustrations of the last 20 months, how big of a hit has it been financially to not be getting paychecks to do something that you're so good at? Have you had to go, find a full-time job, a part-time job in general? Do you have businesses outside of fighting that were hurt by the pandemic, and that made the layoff even more frustrating? Like, how has the financial situation been for these last 20 months?
Thanks to my wife, it's been not too bad. She has a
Okay.
really steady job, really good job. She was able to work from home, so she was kind of helping take care of us. But I also have my other job. I help to run a martial arts school and a kickboxing program. So that was ongoing, and I had some of my instructors and even myself doing some Zoom classes and things like that. We're
Okay.
blessed with a lot of real loyal students and families. So most of our families just kept on paying tuition through the pandemic. So that helped for sure. That's a part-time thing for me. At the end of my career, I want to make that more of a full-time thing. But right now, fighting takes first, goes first. And yeah, it definitely didn't make as much money. Because when I fight, that's when the checks come in.
Yeah. Now, Phil Davis once told me that, being very active, having a lot of fights a year, can make it harder to, at least in his opinion, add new tools to the toolbox, because he said so much focus in a camp goes into the opponent, getting ready for them and everything. He'd like to take good breaks in between fights. That's why he would like fight 2 times a year, even though he's a known name. Because you have had so much time away from the sport, is it safe to say the Martin Day that enters the cage on July 11th will be different than the one we last saw in November of 2018?
Oh, 1,000%. I've been able to take this time, and as you said there about Davis, I agree with that type of mentality as well. I like to take a little bit more time in between. Maybe a little bit more than just 2 fights a year.
Yeah.
But that concept is something that I agree with 100%, and I was able to do that over this last 20 months. One thing that I wanted to really work on was my strength and conditioning program, as far as my strength, my explosiveness, and that has improved so much since my last fight. I was able to put on more muscle and just a little bit more mass, and my explosiveness for sure. Also, I really wanted to work on my grappling and wrestling, so that definitely improved as well, along with, of course, the other aspects of my game. So when you're not focusing on a particular opponent, your opponent is yourself. So when your opponent is yourself, you're constantly breaking yourself down and finding out the weak points and getting better at those. And so that's what I've been able to do for the last 20 months. And I definitely know you'll see a different Spartan in there on July 11th.
Are there any specific things you can think of, like that, with the addressing the grappling or going strength and condition, that you can say, man, I've been knocking guys out in the gym, or just my cardio has been a lot better, or just my grappling, I can feel the strength difference? Are there specific examples you could tell, oh yeah, this was worth it, this made a huge difference?
Yeah, my body fat percentage is the same, but I'm still walking around a little bit heavier. So I put on more muscle for sure. And just as far as the grappling and the submissions, I feel like I've reached a new level on that. Like what you said, when you're constantly fighting, you kind of hit a plateau because you're constantly getting ready for a certain opponent. But now I've really been able to focus on my own weaknesses as a grappler and tighten those up a lot. So I feel like my jiu-jitsu is on another level. This guy I'm fighting is a ground guy, but I honestly believe I have a jiu-jitsu advantage in this fight. Not that I'm gonna, not that I want to take it there. Maybe not. Maybe I will. But I just feel more confident than ever in all areas.
And that's interesting you brought it up, because I was going to ask you, does this fight simply boil down to, because his jiu-jitsu is grappling so good, he's got his submissions in this game, does it boil down to just keeping it standing, and the more it's standing, the better chance you win? But for you would you say you're honestly confident wherever it goes, despite him having like a bunch of submissions in the game?
Yeah, I'm very confident wherever the fight goes. I definitely like to keep the fight on the feet. That's no secret. You can watch any of my fights and you can know that I like to keep it standing. And part of that is that's my background. That's where I feel the most comfortable. That's everyone has their base, and my base is on the feet. So and also it's just people want to see. That's what people want to see. People want to see the strength. People want to see the kicks. And I don't think I've ever been in a boring fight. When I fight, you're gonna see spinning kicks, boxing combinations, sprawl, defend a takedown, get right back up and punch. So that's what I come to bring in every time. Exciting fights. People pay good money for this, and they're gonna get exciting fights when I get in there.
Now, Davey Grant is a guy that kind of sort of understands your predicament, in that he actually, when I was looking up, he's had periods in his career where he was out for like 2 years, over 2 years. There was another time when he was out for like a year and a half. So he probably understands how people can evolve when out of action for a while. That said, what do you think is going to be his approach to fighting you? What do you think he and his coaches are saying is the way to beat Martin Day in 2020?
Well, that's how I constantly break myself down. I constantly say, if I'm gonna fight myself, how would I beat myself? And so, I think if they were smart, they would definitely look to close the distance, tie me up, and take me down. But that's not gonna be easy at all. That's gonna be very far from easy. But I think that's what the game plan is gonna be. I think he'll try to trade with me, but I think he'll start to learn that he just won't really be able to match me on the feet, and he'll start to look for those takedowns.
Now, the fascinating thing about this, and I actually asked Dan Ige, because he's going to be on the main event in the event after you guys, on Yas Island, and it's been talked about how crazy hot it was in recent Abu Dhabi events. And I doubt that the UFC is making this facility with perfect air conditioning and it's gonna be this perfect 70-degree temperature. So it's gonna be hot as all hell. So how have you been preparing for that? Like, have you been doing anything specific in mind preparing? Like, I'm gonna possibly be fighting in a 100-degree temperature.
I don't think it's going to be that hot. Now, the UFC does a great job of accommodating us fighters. I saw like a picture and the octagon was outside, but, I'm pretty sure it's going to be indoors. There's no way we can fight outside in 105 degrees. But, if we had to, that probably put me in an advantage. Over in England, it's pretty freezing cold out here. So, in Hawaii, we got some pretty hot temperatures and pretty humid over here sometimes. So, it's whatever, It's just, if we got to fight outside, I was raised in this side. Let's do it.
How far in advance are you going? Will you be out there? And is it, will that be something in mind? Like, let me just test this heat, and if it's as bad as some people say, okay, at least I have some time to get my game plan ready for it.
Yeah. We're gonna get up there nice and early. We actually go to Vegas tomorrow, check in, do the COVID testing, first round of COVID testing, and all that stuff. Everybody will get cleared, and then we'll go out to Dubai from there. And I think we get to Dubai before the fight week even starts, like the end of this week. Hopefully everything will go smooth and we get out there around that time. So yeah, we get like a whole week to acclimate. And the fight over there is gonna be local Dubai time. My fight will be at like 2 a.m. So I get to stay on Hawaii time basically.
And what's interesting, I remember talking to somebody that had a fight in Russia, and they talked about how, going from the U.S. to Russia, they had to kind of do like their weight cut. Now you're in an interesting spot too, because especially so you haven't had to do a weight cut in a while. You got to go from Hawaii to Vegas, then from Vegas all the way over there. Is that something that's gonna affect your week or more process to slowly get down in weight? And are you gonna have to make adjustments to all these flights, long flights too?
Yeah, small adjustments here and there. It's just like what I said earlier. It's rolling with the punches. It's taking it how it comes, and it's the trip to Vegas isn't too bad. It's the time difference is Vegas is almost like that's why they call Vegas the ninth island. It's it's like an extension of Hawaii and a lot of local guys over there. But yeah, Vegas not too bad, and then. Like I said, when we go over to Dubai, I'm kind of staying on a different time zone. I won't be adjusting to Dubai's time zone because of the time in which I'll be fighting. Yeah. So I'll be waking up at a certain time and doing my training at the time of my fight, which is weird for their local time, but it'll be normal for me. So I won't have to actually adjust.